Welcome back to the latest episode of TT Plays. I'm Sung Soo, and we're going to talk about Arisanna for Grand Archive. So, this is probably my last cleric video for a little bit, and we'll talk about that in the video. So, I've played her in 3 events, 1 online, 2 local, and each time I've gotten X and 1. That is not saying this is an X and 1 deck. I played very little aggro in all of those based on luck and people experimenting with other decks, and that's clearly the worst matchup. It's like wide ally aggro is not looking good, boys and girls. But the deck's a lot of fun. I think there's a deck here, but I'm so excited to brew other lists. I kind of want to move on and start playing Polehawk, but I wanted to circle back here to Arisanna. So a lot of you watched my first video on it, where I was a little rambly. I then did a second video, a live stream. Hopefully you watched that, which was also a little rambly. So this is version 1.05 of the deck. And I'm just going to run through it, explain a couple of the kind of high level cards that we really like. And there's a couple different ways we can take this. We might do some edits here on the video. So first of all is Scepter of Lumina, however you want to say that. We are really scraping for damage. In slow matchups, materializing this and picking up 4, 8, possibly even 12 damage is monstrous. However, there is a lot of hate for it now. Meltdown is in decks. Into the Mirror, you're going to see Frack. So you can't bank on it. And a lot of the times, we just aren't afforded the luxury of taking a materialization off instead of just blitzing us to level 3. So I like the Scepter. I'm not hideously opposed to cutting it. I do like it, obviously, for the mirrors. But again, right, I'm seeing a lot of Meltdown into the Wide Allies deck. We just don't have the time for it. But again, we need to get that additional damage in. How can we get that additional damage in? Well, we've upped the ally count even more. So I'm leaning a little that way. So Scepter might, if you wanted to cut Scepter, that wouldn't be crazy. Obviously, we're still playing Arisanna Astral Zenith. I guess if you missed the initial one, we're trying to make Arisanna Astral Zenith work. We like 0-star calling. I don't think this is a top tier deck, but I think it's very good. I think you can win your local events with it. I think you could win a store championship with it. If you take it to Ascent, I think you're just going to get outclassed. Other things we've added the Bulwark Sword, the Tony weapon from the starter deck. Why? Well, it's a 0 materialization. Late game, you can just pay 2 to swing with the thing for 2 damage. It's basically 4 damage out of a materialization slot. It's really good. It helps us close out late games, or even if we need to remove some key ally in the mid to early game. So I am really happy with the Bulwark Sword inclusion here. Scale of Souls, I'm pretty mid on. Late game recovery is great. Obviously, Morgan hasn't made it into the deck or worked out yet. Return a card from your memory to your hand is fine. There's a couple things now that look at your memory and discard something from it, so you can hide something if you put something valuable down there. But basically, we're using it for the recover. We're also using it to try to hit balance sometimes now. We did add Gildus to the deck, so I like Scale of Souls. I like Ingredient Pouch to help me balance my hands in the late games. I'm trying to bring it home here. Chalice of Blood has been an absolute MVP, a total house. There are so many games where we're over that 20 threshold and just kind of lingering there. Drawing 2 cards is absolutely monstrous. So Chalice of Blood, really happy with that addition there. So that's generally the material deck. Scepter, you could convince me to cut, and there's any number of things we could put there. If you're worried about aggro, we could toss a Terrafring in there. There's all sorts of draw effects we could put in there. There's a bunch of different options. I'm still leaving the Scepter in. I think it's good enough, but just don't bank on it. If you take that turret off and you lose it to a Meltdown or a Frack, it's going to feel like a blowout. So just, again, keep your options open. If you think they're playing Meltdown, materialize it, pass, count on your instance on end step. That's a slow activation card. Maybe you can spend the 5 to banish it to draw 2 cards. If they whiff with the Meltdown and you spent a float to functionally draw 2 cards on a turn, that doesn't feel that bad. But again, we've increased our ally count, so we're less dependent on the Scepter damage here. All right, let's jump to the main deck. I've kind of talked about it a little bit here. I've kind of got it divided up here. So here we have our floating memory. We're down to 16. And I already missed some of the float, but we're down to 16 here. I still really like the Navigates the Streets package. This is kind of my early float. I just like this card more than Idle Thoughts. Late game, this just has more value in it to me than Idle Thoughts does. It actually gives us the Glimp. It gives us the Floating Memory. I really like the Palatial Concourses. I'm still on 4 of these. The beginning of the Recollection phase, just getting that additional glimpse, it can help us in the level up find our dungeon guides or whatever we need in order to level ourselves up. In the late game, obviously, we can use it to filter our draw and hopefully get lucky into some Comets or Cosmic Bolts here. So I'm still really happy with this 8-card package here. If you wanted to cut it out for more aggro, you certainly could, or even more Astra, but I would definitely recommend replacing an early float. If you do pull this out, you could look at like Chilling Touch if you wanted to, or Idle Thoughts, but I like the Navigates the Streets and the Conquest package, right? That's 8 Glimpse cards. 4 of them have Floating Memory. Fast Cure has been a house. Fracture Eyes, I think, is just an absolute monster right now. It's really important. It's really important to protect our Nullifying Lantern. It's also important to destroy our opponent's really valuable stuff. And into Rangers, it's great to be able to remove their gun. It's quite depressing as the Ranger player. For the allies, obviously we have the Rhyme Soul Bishop. It's a class Floating Memory, and we have the chance to have it basically replace itself by using a Floating Memory. Some people value a Floating Memory as a full card value. I think that's incorrect. I think a float is worth, I don't know, 2/3 of a card. But again, turning 2/3 of a card into an actual card is still a good ratio. I wish we had more float for the Rhyme Soul Bishop, but just getting us a 2/2 on the board for 3 is pretty valuable. The Allied War Priest has been a unit. She has been phenomenal. 2/3, that little extra thickness goes a long way with the class bonus. When we get the on attack recover 2, it's been really clutch. Memory 4+ isn't that hard for us. It's a little annoying with the Gildas, but again, Allied War Priest has been an absolute unit. Again, helping us get that chip damage in as we race to level 3 to kill you with Cosmic Bolts. Gildas was a recent addition, and honestly, she's just too good not to put in the deck. We're still a water deck, so we can bait and hold up interaction, right? We can rate 3, play Gildas, hold up 3. We're representing Frostbind. We're representing Fracture Eyes. Guild has just been a house. Guild has also been great late game. We talked about the different materializations we have to help us at balance. Guildy is just really, really good. Paladin, water staple card. I don't want to go over it too much, but the Intercept has been really clutch, especially into Rangers. When Rangers are trying to taser shot, having the Frostborn being able to out there to just intercept stuff and be obnoxious can be clutch, allowing us to intercept, or allowing us to level up without taking 4 or even 8 damage in a turn. So I really like the Paladin. Obviously, that's not a hot take. So we've kind of got a Floating Memory, 16 Floating Memory, right? We've got down here these basically 16 beaters to kind of come across. We have 2 Frostbinds. We have 4 Scry this guys for the late game glimpse. We have 4 Dungeon Guide here. So again, Dungeon Guides to level up. Scry for the late game glimpses. Frostbind for the early interaction for the fear of it. Again, I don't want to run 4 of these. I just want my opponent to respect it. If they slow down a little bit and Frostbind never has an effect, that's fine. If they happen to go wide, try to jam stuff into us, we have Frostbind. It's also useful in the late game where players just inherently don't have as many cards. Conjured Downpour, I am still in love with, and people have asked me, why are you running Conjured Downpour as opposed to Resolute Stand? Well, I have Resolutes right now on the sideboard. Conjure gives all attacking units -2, which means we're playing this wider ally board now, right? We're hoping to get 2 or 3 allies out, and Conjure protects them and us, right? If we Resolute Stand, they just turn and start attacking into our allies normally, right? If we Resolute on ourselves, right? We're taking -3 damage, our allies aren't. Conjure says whenever a unit attacks, that unit gets -2. So all those allies we have out there are all just tougher and more resilient. This card can be great. If we're able to get a card down to draw a card to replace this, it's even more impactful. So I've liked Conjured Downpour. It's hard to get the memory for, right? Because we're playing an ally, we're attacking with the ally. If we have 2 allies, we probably run them both out. So it's hard for us to have a spell to play plus the Conjure. But the Conjure to save the board, to save yourself, has been really good. I've been really happy with the Conjure Downpour. It's one of the things that makes the aggro matchup a little more tolerable. So that's the non-advanced element cards. We're no hot takes here. We're still on 4 Astrocyte. The card's great. Just a phenomenal card. We're still on 4 Cosmic Bolts. Please don't banish this. We need every bit of damage we can from the Cosmic Bolts to close out the game. We formerly were on 4 Comet Falls. I've cut to 2 because we often have a board. and Comet Falling can feel bad if I'm wiping my own board. So I don't know if that's right or wrong, but right now we are just down to 2 Comet Falls here. We have 2 Astral Seals. This counterspell has been an absolute house, a great unit. It being able to be played for free is incredible. And then again, 4 cards to hold up the Astral Seal. This card has really been amazing. Not to mention there are more and more cards with graveyard interactions. So again, negating effects with the actual banishing. Again, I think Astral Seal has been great. I don't love Scribe the Stars. You could definitely talk me into cutting this card. Actually, let's go ahead and do that. Let's cut this card for now. I think if you want to run Scribe, that's fine. I want to try to run Serum of Wisdom. You can see I kind of cheated and preloaded that here. Why do I want to run Serum of Wisdom? Well, I'm not running any herb manipulation right now. So basically my heroes say you have a, I don't know, what is it, roughly 50% chance to be able to draw a card, and that's all I get for going from level 1 to level 2. Right? I'm going to gather 2 herbs. I'm going to gather 2 herbs. And then at the beginning of my end phase, I can sacrifice 2 herbs with the same name. If I do, I draw a card. Now, the herbs all have additional effects. Getting +1 level is useful for Scry the Skies because we glimpse 1 more, right? Being able to take a card, put it on the bottom, and draw is obviously useful to filter, try to find that dungeon guide early on, try to find big glimpses late game, and then recover is just recover. But I'm tempted to try Serum of Wisdom here. We can brew it with any 3 herbs, which means the first one we play is either free, and if it's not free, it means we hit on multiple herbs of the same type, and we've already drawn a card off that. And then it gives us Glimpse and the Replace. The Replace is really why I like this, right? We glimpse 3 and then we draw a card into memory here. So I do like Serum of Wisdom. So let's try 2 Serum of Wisdom. We cut some of the Scry the Sky. So our Astra package is pretty narrow here. But again, I want to test Serum of Wisdom, and why not? Let's go ahead and test Serum of Wisdom here. So this is our 60. I like it. Again, if you want to cut the Navigate and Palatial, you certainly can. I've been pretty happy with that in general. All right, let's jump to the sideboard real quick here. Song of Frost is amazing. Locally, we have a lot of Rangers, so I think this is important. This is not a great card into wide ally decks, but I do think it's a really impactful card. So it only costing 2 means that we can hold up 3 cards in our hand, and we're either representing Song of Frost, Fracture Eyes, or Frostbind. 3 very different pieces of interaction, and our hands look the same every time. So I think that is important. Song of Frost combined with Conjure Downpour, right? I Song of Frost on turn 2, I'll Conjure on turn 3, or round 3, can stop a lot. So I've been happy with Song of Frost at 3. You could talk me into another number, but for now we're leaving it at 3. The Null Lantern is a must-have. We want to play that. We want to Fracturize it ourselves, and we want to tell Fire that they have to work harder. Nullifying Lantern, really good card. Might have to be moved to the main deck depending on your meta. I'm still running 2 Resolute Stands. I don't know if this is right or not, but we're still running them. We can obviously protect like the Paladin if it's intercepting everything, or we can obviously just play it on ourselves here. You could definitely talk me into removing this, but right now we have Resolute here. Last but not least is Astarte. I have no idea how to say your name, I'm sorry. The Celestial Dawn. Fast activation for a 2/4 Astra, right? Phenomenal right there. If an object would enter the field under opponent's control from anywhere except the effect stack, we banish it face down. Okay, well, what does that say? Astarte stops objects from entering the field unless your opponent's control if they're not activated or materialized. Some examples include put onto the field, summon tokens, and suppress effects. So this gets rid of that stupid, annoying Hex Drinker that Umber brings back all the time. This is our one answer to the donkey. Right? Because the Incarnate Majesty summons the donkey, and if you can catch it with the Astarte Celestial Dawn, they say no, and then you exile it. And then obviously it shuts down a whole bunch of token effects here. So I like her. She's been good so far. She's also just a 2/4 to come in for the beats, fast activation. So again, if we need some additional damage, we can run some additional damage. So there it is. That's the sideboard, the main deck, and the material deck of Arisanna 1.05 right now. I am, happy with the deck. Let's add another comment here. Let's actually increment that up to 106. Let's say remove scry the stars to test Serum of Wisdom. I'm looking forward to testing Serum of Wisdom this week, but here's the deck. Let me know how your Arisanna playtesting has been going. I've enjoyed the deck. I think, unfortunately, it is about where we thought it was. I just don't think it's a top-tier deck. You're so lottery-based as to whether you hit those Cosmic Bolts and the Comet Falls and what you need to. Can you find them in the top half of your deck? When it works, it feels great. It feels really powerful. But again, it's just an inconsistent deck. And we are light on damage, so we're forced to add this kind of ally package here. We don't do a great job of protecting them. Our only real interaction to protect them is Conjure. Conjure's phenomenal, don't get me wrong. But we're not like old Wind Allies used to be or something like that. We're not a Lunette Allies deck. Allies deck just honestly do that early game better than us. So we're just trying to hole up, survive through that early game, and then bring it home with Cosmic Bolts in the end. So I love Star Calling. I think it's really cool. I think the whole deck idea, the way she plays, is a ton of fun. If you want to approach it a little differently, you want to be a spellcaster. Again, we're rushing to level 3. We're glimpsing a whole bunch of cards. We're Star Calling on our turn. We're Star Calling on your turn. I think it's a ton of fun. So I hope you like Arisanna. I am brewing a Fire Potion Arisanna version. And I need to look at Wind. I haven't really looked at Wind too much, so we'll be taking a look over there as well. So let me know, again, what you think, Arisanna. Let me know how the deck's been performing with you. Do you think the Serum of Wisdoms are worth it, or should we have just kept the Scry the Stars? And again, I do want to thank each and every one of you for watching, listening to me talk about Grand Archive. If you'd give me a like and a subscribe, it really means a lot. Helps the channel, helps me, go to Weebs and say, hey, can I get a spoiler for the next set? We are going to be talking about Polkhawk probably next, but I will continue to play Arisanna and look for updates when I have them. So until next time, everyone, cheers and happy gaming.